Hi, welcome. This is called Tell Me Your Radio Story, where I ask radio professionals how they started, what their journey was, and where they are now. And I'm so happy to have on this episode Chris McCoy. I call him a consummate professional. We were talking before, he says maybe other people don't call him that, but he's been in the business for a long, long time. We worked together at B101 in Philadelphia. Chris, welcome.
Hey Dan, it's good to see your face, man. Been a long
Good to,
time.
yeah, good to see you too. How are you?
What can I say? I'm living the dream, buddy. I'm out here in sunny Northern California, and I'm out here with my wife Roberta, and lucky enough to have my daughter, her husband, and my two grandsons, who are 3 and 1.5, out here too. So I've got some family out here, which is very cool. We all kind of moved out at the same time in a wagon train, by the way.
I love it. So tell me your radio story. I know most of it, but I think I know how you first started in radio, but tell everyone watching right now how that all occurred.
Well, I was going to school for psychology. I thought I wanted to be a psychologist, but really I wanted to be on the radio. I mean, just like everybody else, I'm sure you included, everybody else who's done this for a living knew at a very, it seems like they knew at a very young age that this is what they wanted to do. So I thought one day I woke up and thought, why am I studying Jung and Freud and all of those when I really want to study rock and roll?
Yeah.
So I was going to a community college getting my associate's degree, and I decided to take one of those radio courses at a radio school in Philadelphia, and I did, and I really enjoyed it. Taught me a lot. But while I was there one day on the billboard, it said there is a radio station in Vineland, New Jersey called WWBZ looking for someone to work nights. Now, I mean, I was as green as a greenhorn could get. I hadn't even graduated from this broadcasting school yet. But I took down the number, I called him up, and I said, "Look, I'd like to come in and sit down and chat with you." He said, "Come on down." So I did. I walked in, and Dan, I think they were ready to hire the next person with a pulse that walked through the door because I was hired on the spot to do nights at a little tiny AM daytimer in Vineland, New Jersey called WWBZ. And as a kid who grew up in South Jersey, having to say two W's in a row was kind of put me at risk quite a bit. But I was able to do it.
Does this
From
radio
there,
station still exist?
yeah, I think it does. I think it moved. I believe it's no longer licensed in Vineland, but I think it's still in New Jersey.
Okay.
Um, anyway, I spent a couple of years there learning the ropes. Moved on to a station in Ocean City doing mornings, which meant I spent afternoons on the beach on Ninth Street.
Yeah.
And from there, I moved to a, CHR, a top 40 they called it back then, in Atlantic City, another AM station, WMID. And I was working nights there too. And one night, a jock from WPEN in Philadelphia, which at the time was an oldie station called 95 PEN, came to visit there, someone at the station that he knew. And he and I got to chatting in the studio. And he said, we're looking for somebody in Philly. You should send a tape. So I did. And about a week later, I got a call from a gentleman named Peter Mockover, who was the program director of 95 PEN. He said, "Go on into the city. We want to talk to you." And I think they were ready to hire the next person. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So I got the job, and I worked there for quite a few years. They changed formats. They went to a format that was kind of out of my musical frame of reference, American classic, Sinatra, Nat King Cole. So they let me go, but I walked down the hall to an FM radio station that also belonged to Greater Media, the company, and which was an AC called Magic, at the time Magic 103, and I got hired there doing part time. I did part time there for about a month or so, and I got the midday shift. So far I've been very lucky in this journey, luckier than most.
So
I then
yeah, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say you were there 15 years at
Yeah,
MGK when they were
yes, I was.
ABC.
Exactly. I got to work with a lot of really good people, including the PD by the name of Bob Craig, who taught me an awful lot. I also worked with my good friend and godfather to one of my girls, Mike Bowe, for all those years. Uh, so from MGK, when they switched formats, I was a victim of format switching a couple of times in my career. Um, Someone said, "Hey, you should try B101," which was the crosstown rival at the time and was kicking MGK's butts. And you were part of that butt kicking, by the way. You were, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I interviewed with the PD there, and I got the job. And he hired me, as I recall, part time. And then one day he came to me and said that he had an opening, and the opening was in the morning. And I know at one point you were in morning, but they moved you to afternoon, right?
No, when I was morning, then they made you mornings. They moved me to nights, and I was on
Oh,
night for like 9 months, and then I moved to afternoons. So
okay. So I got the job at B101, which to this day I consider the best job I've ever had in radio. Spent about 13 plus years there, and I was lucky enough in the morning to be paired up with people that are a lot better at radio than I am. Joan Jones, known as JJ, and Tiffany Hill. Uh, so I managed to stick out 13 plus years there in the morning at B101, and eventually uh, was moved out of that job, went up to New Brunswick and worked for an MGK sister station called WMGQ, which was Magic 98.3. I was hired to do morning there, and I did morning there for 9 years. And then the station was sold, and I was let go. And I was out for a couple of months. And then Charlie Max hired me part time in Wilmington at WJBR. And that was kind of my launching pad to where I am now, which is in Sacramento, California. For the first time in my life, though, I'm doing a classic rock format after what 30 plus years doing AC.
so
And there
let's
were a
touch.
lot of people. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Let's touch upon a couple of different things. So B101. How long were you on until you were paired with Joan as your morning co-host?
Let me. It was probably maybe a year.
Yeah.
I know Jim Ryan was made PD, and after Mark left, Jim Ryan came in, and Joan was providing the traffic reports in the morning, and she was in another studio down the block. But we developed this really good chemistry, a good rapport with each other. And Jim Ryan and I were talking about that one day, and we thought that maybe it would be a good idea to bring Joan across the parking lot into the building, the B101 building, and into the studio, and where we could actually see each other while we were doing the morning radio, and she became a co-host.
So you said it took about a year to get paired with Joan. The reason why I asked you that was very interesting. When I was doing mornings, I think they tried out like four different people to be kind of like my co-host or a news person. And as you said, it was in a different studio or what have you. Then um, they when they went with you. That so I guess the thinking all along was they took their time. It wasn't like let's assemble the show, then do it. No, we'll have Chris by himself for a while. She's down there. Oh, maybe she could be your co-host. Maybe it's could take a year, but I know sometimes in radio that happens, and it's what they always say, Chris. You can't make chemistry; it just occurs, right?
Absolutely true, Dan. That's it's one of the things that occurs in nature, and if it's not there, it's not there. You can't really fake it. So, and that's why I say I was lucky that I was able to have that twice in my career with JJ, and then when JJ left with Tiffany Hill, who was brought in. I went through a series of auditions with a lot of different women in between JJ and Tiffany Hill. But like I said, when you hit on it, you know it, and when that person is the person, um, it kind of feels right, and that's what happened there. So
Absolutely. Let's talk about a couple of things that you fondly remember about the B101 days. And I think you were there when this happened. You know the story. So, and I won't say names per se, but we could laugh. Our consultant at the time became enamored with a passenger on an airline, some gentleman liked his
yeah,
voice and thought, "Oh, it's like the old Hollywood days. I could walk into a candy store and find the next star. I'll make this guy a star." I remember this guy coming in the studio. I had to help him record, and I'm thinking, what the heck? Okay, you can have a nice voice, but if you don't know how to be on the radio, and then someone tries to teach you, and you
right.
still don't get it, no matter how great of a voice you have, it's not going to work. Do you remember that whole incident?
I do. I remember the story, but I remember it. I heard that he was a flight attendant.
Okay, maybe he was a flight attendant.
This- And I guess he was doing the announcements, the seatbelt thing and all of that, um, and this particular uh,
Consultant.
person heard it and thought he had talent for radio.
Yeah,
Thank God, Chris Conley, who is one of my radio geniuses,
he is.
I just decided that no, this I don't think this is going to work because I believe that they were trying to get this guy to replace me.
Yeah.
So that was the story. So
I
it
love
was one of those.
I always love what Chris Conley said, and I still work with him today at Light FM in New York, and he says all the time, "Buddy, you don't know how many fires I put out." And I said, "Well, when are you going to tell me all these stories? I think that the time has passed." And he's like, "One day we got to go golfing, and I got to tell you a lot of stories." And I said, "I am looking forward to it because I think we'll just laugh the whole time because he was awesome, knowing
Yeah,
all the things he knew and how to be a great program director, and just knew how to finesse higher ups to put out those fires of that inkling like, hey, I heard this guy saying we're currently at 35,000 feet and I thought he has a great voice, he should be on the radio. No, it's more than that.
yeah. Chris Conley is a great guy, and like I said, a excellent programmer. Has been
Yes,
for a long time, and he just ran interference for us on the staff a lot more than we ever knew. And I think he ought
absolutely.
to write a book or do a podcast or something.
He
So
well, hopefully he will say yes. He will be one of my guests, and maybe, maybe not talk about the current situation he's in, but past situations. That the time has passed. He could talk about B101, and hopefully, or maybe when he finally retires or what have you. Hopefully he doesn't retire soon.
yeah,
But when he does
not for a
retire,
long.
and he just wants to play golf all the time, he will come on a podcast that I have, and we could talk about some great stories. So besides that, maybe the top five great memories. And I know you were at B101 a long time. What comes to mind right away that you're like, oh, I love that when this happened? Maybe who you interviewed, who some different events we did, what have you.
Okay, I'm going to admit to something here. I got to interview quite a few people while there at B101. Uh, you know, Mostly AC artists, of course. Michael Bolton, I remember when he came in, he was a great guy, real easy to talk to. JJ and I interviewed him. But I remember uh, Chris Conley came to me one day and he said, Night Ranger is coming into the studio this Friday.
Yeah,
They were out at Valley Forge Music Fair or some place that's not there anymore.
that was a great
And
place, by the way.
yeah, it
I love
was
that place.
Theater in the Land. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh, and he said, Night Ranger, I want you to interview them. I said, okay, great. I walked out of the office thinking, who the hell is Night Ranger? Now, keep in mind, I was an AC guy. I wasn't a rock and roll guy at the time, and I had no idea who they were. So they, I think three of them came in, the main three came into the studio, and I had to really wing it because I had no idea who they were, what songs they did. Thank God for JJ. She knew Night Ranger like the back of her hand. So I just kind of sat back and said, she's doing a really good job with these guys, whoever the heck they are. But yeah, I mean, they were interesting times. One of Jerry Lee was the owner, and Jerry was a very generous man in a lot of ways, and he threw some of the most great holiday parties I ever
Yeah,
attended. And I think you could probably attest to that too. In some of the finest venues in the city of Philadelphia, places I never would have gone to on my own for a soiree. Uh, we used to, Jerry was used to take us up to New York City to talk to the media buyers, and we had lunch in a different restaurant in New York City. We did that twice a year. Uh, just I have so many great memories, and the fun we had, Dan, doing the morning show. There were mornings when we didn't have any fun, but for the most part, I would say 90% of the time we had a ball. Looked forward to going into work every day. Uh, there was, uh, like I said, JJ and Tiffany Hill and Jason Lee, who was our producer for a while.
yeah,
While he was working on TV in Philadelphia, he would do early mornings producing for us. Um, just so many great memories. Most of it just having fun and working with people that I really love to be around. And not every morning show can say that. A lot of them have to fake it that they like each other. We never had to do that, so I'm
I agree.
grateful for that.
Well, Jason Lee's going to be an episode or two before you when I have this all done. So, and he talked fondly of you also. And the couple of things that you made me think of, uh, that remember the 35th anniversary of the frequency of 101 when we had the like 500 people that were clients and what have you. We were downtown in Philadelphia, and
Yes,
Hall Notes played our party,
yes.
which was
I
tremendous.
remember. You know what I remember about that in particular?
What's that?
It was at. It was at. First of all, it was at the swankiest hotel in
Yeah,
Center City, Philadelphia, right?
yep.
And like you said, all the listeners and some clients and things were invited to come for this private concert. And I remember going back and to meet Hall and Oates before the show in the hotel. And that night, for whatever reason, and I know this happens,
I know
they
what
had
you're gonna say.
apparently they apparently had an argument with each other, and they were still pretty pissed at each other, and they weren't talking. So they were actually having dinner in separate hotel rooms
Yeah,
before they went on stage. And so that was kind of a little awkward. But man, when they got on stage, you would never know it. I mean, you would just never know it.
I think
They kicked.
they were feeling us out. I remember I was saying this to Jason. They were feeling us out, and as soon as they played "Rich Girl" and they saw the reaction, then they got into it, and then I think
Yeah,
that
yeah.
whole fight just subsided. The other thing
Well, it
that
was
you,
their home.
yeah, the other
Yeah,
thing you said, which was great, that Chris Conley did, that I don't think program directors do this anymore, whether they're not allowed to, they don't think about it, or they would like to do it, but they don't get the budget of enjoying our success. So when the ratings came out, we all went out to dinner and as a whole on air staff to nice places and we said like, "Hey, congratulations guys, you did a great job." And that just made you feel good, right?
yeah. I think, like I said, I think that thanks in large part to Chris Conley and the way he handled the staff, and he was able to. One of the things I remember about Chris is, as opposed to the way it is now when you work in corporate radio, we were a standalone at the
Yeah.
time. B101 was just one radio station, and if you needed to talk to the big guy to get clearance to do this or that or to spend this money or that, you had to go through the chain.
Yes.
Chris, all he had to do was walk down the hall to Jerry Lee's office, and
Yeah, we're
like you
going out to
said,
dinner to celebrate the ratings. Give me your credit
yeah,
card. See you later.
that credit card got a workout, as I recall.
Yeah.
So, not only was it a fun place to work, but it was a very successful place to work, thanks to all of the consummate pros like yourself and uh, the late Donna Rowland, uh,
Yeah.
Juan Varleta. You
Juan,
know,
awesome.
yeah, so many
Jason,
good people.
yeah,
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah, everybody was great. So I know the answer to this question, but I don't know if everybody does. If you were granted that wish of the ultimate job, and it's not radio, as I remember you telling people, what would you like to be doing? Do you remember this? Or should I say?
Yeah, no, I don't
I've heard
refer.
you say that you would like to be the drummer of the Rolling Stones. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. I remember that. I was going to say the Beatles, but you know what?
You was the Rolling Stones, wasn't it?
It was the Rolling Stones. Yeah, I don't think Charlie Watts would have given up the kit for me, and I don't think Mick and Keith would have allowed him to do that. But yeah, definitely being the guy behind the kit for the Rolling Stones would be absolute heaven for me.
So that segs into that now you're on a classic rock station,
Yeah.
and this is the first time in your entire career that you've played classic rock. Have you ever said that on the air when you're playing the Rolling Stones? Say, one day I had wished that I could have been the drummer of the Stones, but they probably wouldn't have let me. Here's whatever. Here's
I did share
miss you.
that.
You have
Yeah,
said that.
I did share that with my audience out here.
Nice.
But what I didn't tell them is that I worked as an AC jock all my life prior to this because I didn't want to blow my cover, Dan. You
Sure.
know.
Why? Why should they don't know? You're
Exactly.
so tell me about the journey of so you moved out to Northern California without the radio job?
No, as I was working part time at JBR with Charlie Max
Okay.
and looking around for something full time. Honestly, I could not get arrested in Philly radio. I tried everything. I exhausted everything that I thought I might be able to grab. Nothing was panning out. And at the time, as I said, my daughter and her then fiance were, he's in the Air Force, he's an Air Force pilot. And he was transferred from McGuire in New Jersey out here to Travis Air Force Base in the Bay Area. So I figured, okay, why don't we do it? Roberta, my wife, was actually the one, if I'm honest, she's the one who did it. She got my audition. She sent my package out to Sacramento to uh, to the Eagle, KSEG. And I, while we were sitting there the night before my daughter and son-in-law left to come out here, I get a text from the PD out here saying, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you. What's a good time to chat?" So
Nice.
we set up a chat for the next day. I had several on-phone discussions with him uh, over the course of a couple of weeks, and then he finally said, "Well, why don't you come on out? Let's meet in person." So they brought me out here, and we had dinner, we talked, we did all of that. I came back home. I wasn't offered the job as of yet. And then 3 days later, I got the call, "We want you to come out to California." So I said, "I'm there. I'm there. Absolutely. You want me to play classic rock? I grew up listening to classic rock, playing
Yeah.
Barry Manilow. Sure, I'm there. Absolutely, I am there." So my wife and uh, I flew out. She stayed back. We had a house to sell. We had all of that stuff that thankfully she was able to take care of without me. Um, she flew out one day and we flew back, rented a big RV because we had three cats and a dog, and drove everybody out here to California. We did a cross country trip. First time in my life I've ever done that.
Hmm.
And I did it with three cats and a dog and my wife in an RV.
Wow.
It
There's a
took
book.
5 days.
There's a book.
Yeah, exactly. That is a road trip like
Yeah.
like most people never had. So, and I that was almost 4 years ago, and I've been here ever since. Luckily.
I always believe that no matter what format it is, as long as you have talent, you could learn the music. Now the classic rock music, so it was probably an easier adjustment. What were some of the things that you thought, okay, I got to do something a little differently? Maybe not delivery, but anything different? Your approach on the air from AC to classic rock?
Not really. my approach is pretty much the same as it always has been. No one has ever tried to really alter the way I present on the air, out here anyway. Um, I think the only difference is I'm talking about a body of music that, like you said, I'm very familiar with because I grew up with,
Yeah.
but never had the chance to play on the radio, and that lent to the enthusiasm I think that I had for it. Getting to actually play songs that I've always loved on the radio, and talk about them, talk about the artists. Um, I really enjoy doing that. That's something that probably will never get old.
I was going to say that probably energizes you, maybe can give you an advantage over some who have been on the air doing classic rock forever and they're like, oh, I got to play Stairway to Heaven for the 80,000 millionth time, and you're playing it and you just get to tell stories or whatever. Hey, this reminds me of this or what have you. And it's just a new way to energize the music and the audience, I think.
Absolutely. I've always had a bustle in my hedgerow for Led Zeppelin, especially that song. So, I mean, give it to me, give it to me every other day. I don't care. I just love this body of work, and particularly the era that we're dealing with now. Classic rock is kind of like trying to move up in time. When I first got here, there was a lot more titles from the '60s, uh, and a lot fewer titles from the late '80s and early '90s. And now it's kind of gone the other way. Some of those late '60s have dropped off, and we've picked up some from the late '80s and early '90s. So we're kind of going through that. But what I found was, and I guess it's true everywhere, out here, classic rock is big. I was number one 18 to 34 several times. 18 to
Awesome.
34, man, classic rock. Go
Yeah.
figure.
Well, because the kids are listening to their parents are having them grow up on great music, so they enjoy it, and the music's timeless. So that's why I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, it's been a lot of fun out here. I love California. I so miss Philly and South Jersey because that's where I grew up. That's where I was born. That's where I grew up. I still root for the Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers. Um, but I'm out here, and I can't get too amped up. Like when the Eagles won the Super Bowl,
Yeah,
that was so difficult for me because I wanted to come out of my skin. With but out here it's all 49ers and Raiders, and you don't talk about the Eagles all that much, but I did.
I hear you. Advice that you were giving during your radio career that you would tell somebody now that you think would be definitely beneficial even today.
Advice that I was given. Wow, I've been given a lot of advice over the years. Um, I think some, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone said, "Be yourself. Be a
Yeah.
slightly bigger version of yourself, but be yourself." And especially, I noticed that doing morning radio, uh, it was really important to share uh, some of my life experiences, some of the things that go on every day, some of the things that you might consider mundane, uh, that people can relate to. Um, I was never a real funny guy. I was never a joke teller. Um, but I enjoyed sharing, parts of my life that I thought, especially that as we used to call them, the soccer moms, and I hope it's okay to still use that term.
Hmm.
Uh, I hope no one gets offended at that. But and because I had two daughters, two young daughters at the time, they're both on traveling soccer teams. One team played on Saturdays, one team played on Sundays. So I mean, I had a lot of content to bring back to the air. Uh, but it wasn't all lifestyle. It was just being as real uh, as I could be without showing all the warts. Some warts are okay, but not all.
Yeah. You
You
gotta
know what
be
I'm saying?
yourself. People are having the same experiences because we're in the same area and they could definitely relate. And you do that very well. His name is Chris McCoy. Tell the call letters again. The Eagle In Sacramento, what are the call letters?
It's KSEG 96.9 in
And
Sacramento, California.
and if anybody in the Philadelphia area that's watching this, or no matter what area, can they hear you on an app or if they want to listen in?
Yeah, radio.com is probably the best way to do it. And then just search for 96.9, the Eagle Sacramento.
And you're on middays from what time to what time?
Well, I was on midday. When I first came out, I was on nights, got moved to midday, and then now I'm on 1 to 6 in the afternoon.
Okay. That's happened to me. That's always interesting. It's like, all right, you want me on midday and part of drive time? Okay, whatever you want. We'll do that. I appreciate you talking and catching up with you, and I'm very happy for your success and continued success to you, sir. Always good to have a conversation with you.
You too, Dan. You're one of the finest people that I had the good fortune to meet and work with in this crazy business that we're both in. So keep up the good work. Love the podcast, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Chris McCoy, listen to him.